a situation like this. What was the name of that show? I remember. You turn the little knob like... Right. Lucky it isn't one of those where you have to put a quarter in the meter. Ah, it's rather good. Should have been a writer, I think. I could have used that somewhere or other. Guess I'll show him. Can't do this to me.
Mrs. Packard. It's so lovely to see you. Good evening, Mr. Packard.
How do you do, Mrs. Jordan? It's indeed a pleasure.
So nice. Mrs. Packard, may I present my sister, Mrs. Loomis?
How do you do?
Mrs. Packard.
Glad to know you.
How do you do?
You know, for a minute there, I had you wrong. I figured maybe you were Mrs. Ferncliff.
Lady Ferncliff, you don't. You were close. I'm pinch hitting for her.
Huh?
Yes, isn't it too bad Lord Ferncliff was taken desperately ill late this afternoon?
Oh, that's too bad. And you're right.
Oh, the doctor said he must go to have some sunshine.
You mean he's not coming?
Oh, impossible. They rushed him right down to Florida on a special train.
Hello, Doc.
Here comes Dr. Talbot.
Oh, hello, Wayne. So glad to see you. How's
Howdy,
Lucy?
Well, she just felt a little under the weather. And
I understand.
I knew you would. You're looking very lovely, Millicent.
Thanks. Let me see now, Mr. Packard. I don't believe you have met Dr. Talbot and Mrs. Packard.
Oh, we've met.
How do you do?
I know Dr. Talbot.
He sure does. He's her father confessor. How's old medical? Haven't seen you around the house lately, Doc.
I think she gets along very well without me. Don't you, Mrs. Packard?
I get along better when you're looking after me.
I guess that's right, Doc.
Millicent, Lucy said to remember her to the
That's
Ferncliffs. By the way, where are they?
Oh, didn't I tell you? Poor dear Stinky. You know, that's what we call Ferncliff. Was taken desperately ill this afternoon, and they had to whirl him down south to save his life.
Not a dark shame, though. I don't know
Hello, everybody.
hello, Miss Van.
Carlotta.
Oh, Millicent, dear, do forgive me. I'm so sorry. He wouldn't stay home. He cried and cried. I just had to bring him. He's so spoiled since I brought him to America. Aren't you, Abelard? He won't be a bit of trouble. He's as good as gold. He'll just sit under my chair as quiet as a mouse. You'll never know he's there. Just throw him a bit of lobster.
Isn't he sweet? Carlotta, have you met all my...
Isn't Stinky a swine running off to Florida and ruining your whole dinner party? You know, I left here and I went straight to my hotel. And there was his telegram. Off on a fishing trip. Can't you come down? I love your America. Never felt so well in all my life. Molly and I expect you. Telegraph us, Palm Beach. Stinky.
I guess he was just kidding in that wire he sent you, Mrs. Jordan.
Oliver, darling, you haven't said a word to me. Aren't you glad to see me?
You know I love you, Carlotta.
Then you're not cross with me, dear. You'd have thought I'd done something terrible, Mr. Packard, just because I sold my Jordan stuff. I was stony broke, and a man came along and made me the most wonderful offer right out of the blue. Well, I grabbed it. That wasn't so terrible, was it?
What do you think, Packard? Was that so terrible?
Well, business is business. Every fella's got to look out for himself. That's kind of a world it is, you know.
Oh, Dan's always known how many beans made 5, haven't you, Dan? It's
That's right,
so
Kitty.
nice to know Dan's always taking care of things.
Oh, it must be wonderful to be a sheltered woman, Mrs. Packard. A man to look after you, so you never have to worry for yourself.
Say, I think that ought to be a cinch for you.
I beg your pardon.
Well, there's one trouble. A man gets you into a shelter, and he thinks you ought to spend the rest of your life thanking him. What good's a shelter to a girl if that's all there is? And most of the time, she's alone in the shelter.
Kidding.
Now, let me see. We're all here except Mr. Renault. Oh, I do hope he hasn't forgotten.
Oh, he'll be here. He'll be here. He's just staging an entrance.
Oh, I'm crazy to see Larry Renault.
Good evening, Mother.
Paula, I thought you were gone. You all know my daughter, Paula.
Well, Paula, how's the future bride? When are you going to get married?
Where's Mr. Renault? Wasn't he going to be here? You said he was.
Yes. He's coming. He's just not here yet.
Oh.
And I don't think we'll wait for Mr. Renault. Gustav, you may serve dinner.
Last come, last served. That's the way we used to do out in Montana.
I think Avalon is so
Avalon. Oh, yes, maybe that is better than Avalon.
I've had a lot of teeth, but I don't have any luck with them. They just don't like me. You know, like onions. You like
8:30. Hated them always just going on, Millicent.
What's the matter, Paula? Something wrong?
Oh, no. I'm just going, Dad.
If something's bothering you, dear.
No. You go on into dinner. I'll rest here a minute, and then I'll go down and join in.
Well, whatever you say. Good night, Paula.
Good night, Dad. Hello? Is this the Jewel Plaza? I want to talk to Mr. Larry Renault.
Oh, sure. I go to all the shows.
What's that? But I tell you it's important. You've got to connect me. Oh, never mind my name. Just... What?
Yes?
The police.
I saw it twice.
My name is Paula Jordan. I'm sure Mr. Renault hasn't done anything to... What? What? Oh.
Yes, Danny.
Kitty, I just discovered that Dr. Kaufman and I have something in common.
What?
We belong to the same golf club.
Oh.
Good as you will hear this afternoon, Miss Jordan. So we'll have to ask you to stay right where you are until an officer can get down there to talk to you. Hello? Miss Jordan? Hello? Miss Jordan?
You have been listening to Orson Welles in the Campbell Playhouse presentation of Dinner at 8 with Hedda Hopper, Marjorie Rambeau, and Lucille Ball. And now, if you please, Mr. Welles.
Ladies and gentlemen, no more appropriate theme song could usher in our interview. Please permit me to present at this time our three guest stars of the evening. Miss Marjorie Rambeau.
Good evening.
Miss Hedda Hopper.
Good evening.
And Miss Lucille Ball.
Good evening.
I know, Hedda, I'm making an awful mistake in being polite to you because it is perfectly certain that this will lead to something vile in your column, but I'm sincerely glad to see you tonight.
Well, now comes the but. Am I right?
Well, I was wondering whether you're aware of how much time you spent on the telephone in our broadcast this evening. It seemed to me, Hedda, that...
Well, no matter how long you thought I was on the telephone as Millicent Jordan, I assure you it was really a vacation from phoning for me. You try running a column sometime and see how long you can stay away from the telephone.
Perish the thought. I suppose, but it's probably not a coincidence that since the invention of the telephone by Don Amici, the modern column as we know it has been born, or inversely.
If I may say a few words as Carlotta Vance, Mr. Wells.
Please, Miss Rambeau.
Things are so much nicer in those days when there were no columns. I remember...
Oh, do tell us what you remember, Miss Vance, when there were no columns and no railroads and no steamboats and no...
Now, just one moment. Just because I'm willing to remember my memories and not forget them as
Ladies, will you say something, Miss Lucille Ball, to get things more peaceful?
Oh, I'd be glad to. On behalf of Kitty Packard, I think Mrs. Jordan and Miss Vance ought to make up their minds to call it a day, both of them. Just because a girl wants to have a little fun and not sit around all the time like a piece of furniture or something, you'd think butter wouldn't melt in their mouths the way those old...
Thank you very much, Lucille. You managed to straighten everything out just beautifully. If I may, however, and seriously and truly, I'd like to thank all three of you ladies very much in your own persons. Hedda Hopper, Marjorie Rambeau, and Lucille Ball.
Thank you very much.
Good night, and please come back again, ladies and gentlemen. Carlotta Vance was Marjorie Rambeau. Millicent Jordan was Hedda Hopper. To whose sponsors of her program, Hedda Hopper's Hollywood, we're indebted for their kind permission in permitting her to be with us tonight. Kitty Packard was Lucille Ball. Oliver Jordan was played by Charles Trowbridge, who first created the part in the Broadway production. Hattie Loomis was played by Clara Blandick, Paula by Mary Taylor, Dr. Talbot was Edgar Berrier, and Max the Agent was none other than the inimitable Mr. Benny Rubin. Mr. Packard and Mr. Renault, were played and were probably all too recognizably Your Obedient Servant. Music is always composed and conducted by Signor Bernard Herrmann.